Hello and welcome to All Church Sunday School. My name is Shannon Moore.
Renee Hoke here.
Hoke.
Shannon's sidekick.
Nah, we're equals.
We're equals?
Yeah.
Sidekick is
Actually,
a
you're probably
lesser
a little,
person.
Maybe you're a little higher up in the hierarchy than I am because you've been doing this longer.
I actually originated
You
this.
did. You certainly did. Well,
But you're doing a fine job.
Well,
let
thank
me just
you.
Say.
I've been really having a good time.
Good.
Here and the in-person version. We are in person in Walker Hall every Sunday at 10 o'clock ish.
So anybody who wanted to check us out?
Come on in.
Yeah.
And
ask
so
questions in person.
We've been looking at this book, Peculiar Treasures by Frederick Buechner. This is our last
It's our last
week
episode.
with this book.
Remind us of the Exodus quote.
The Exodus quote says, ye shall be a peculiar treasure unto me above all people, for all the earth is mine. God talking to the Israelites early on in the Exodus journey. So, I mean, what a cool concept and what a...
And we have had some fun with these peculiar treasures.
Right. This book is just little vignettes, little descriptions of folks in the Bible and described in Buechner's very, his unique way.
Yes.
And so today we are looking at two very different
treasures.
Two peculiar treasures. You are going to lead us through a discussion of the Queen of Sheba, and then I'm going to lead us through a discussion about Thomas in the New Testament. So I'll be interested to see if there are any
if we can make
connections,
some connection,
if there's a thread of connection.
Very different characters.
Yeah.
Very different stories. What do you know about the Queen of Sheba? When you think about the Queen of Sheba, what do you imagine?
I think of opulence, of somebody fancy, rich.
A fancy woman.
A fancy, right, but not a fancy woman, not like Miss Kitty.
Is that another word? What? Go ahead.
But a rich woman who has anything anyone could ever want and more.
And who is she connected with in Scripture?
King Solomon.
That's right.
You're giving me
who was also
Bible trivia.
An extravagant, bigger-than-life individual. So she comes in to check him out. And I love the way Frederick Buechner tells the story. But first...
It's sort of like when the two of us met.
Two opulent people. No, I don't think it's at all like that. So I want to show you some art over the years that imagines what it was like the day that the Queen of Sheba and her court came to meet King Solomon. This first painting Orlu has found for us is 1590. It is an artist in Venice. And so I think these people look very Venetian.
They do.
Do you think so? And it just looks kind of like it looks kind of out of control, chaotic. There's trunks around with treasures in them, we assume.
I'm not sure I would have any idea what this was without the title. There's, It
doesn't seem as if the artist tried to capture the time period.
Not at all.
But really painted what an opulent scene would have looked like.
Right, but you do feel the excitement and the energy.
Everybody's just going crazy, but not in a very orderly way, as opposed to, look at this next piece of art. This is 1890, a Victorian artist. And so here she is climbing the steps. There's King Solomon. Look at that gathering place.
I like that, but I'm laughing at myself because in my mind, somebody's always carrying her in one of those things. I don't think of her. Oh,
that's right.
I never think of her walking.
So she's going up the steps, and there's a little monkey. I don't know if you can see it, but I spent some time studying. Down below, a little monkey with a fan.
I see.
The monkey is fanning the queen, which I didn't know monkeys could do that. But wow, when we read in 1 Kings chapter 10 about this encounter, we imagine something very grand, and two people with a lot of power who are kind of, let me see.
Kind of checking each other out.
If he stacks up to his reputation and he's thinking, let me see if she...
Right, because she heard about his wisdom. And
that's right.
She's coming to test that out, huh?
see if that was all just stories. All right, here's another piece of art. This is a modern screen print.
I love,
Isn't
love,
that elegant?
love this.
Elegant picture, and I love her head turned towards the camera, and her long neck, and very
I love everything about it.
Very regal. That could be her for sure. Here's a picture. Here's the oldest piece of art from a medieval manuscript, circa 405.
Wow.
But that costume doesn't look like 405. It looks like it could be
That could be today at the Oscars or something.
I just think that's I liked looking at the costume and her crown, which must be very heavy because it's very big. All right. Many actresses wanted to play the Queen of Sheba, obviously.
Well, who wouldn't?
She's bigger than life. Here's one of them right now. In 1959, a movie about the Queen of Sheba starred Gina Lollobrigida.
The most fun celebrity name to say, I think.
Isn't that? And she looks very regal, very beautiful. A little bit more recently, in 1995, Halle Berry played the Queen of Sheba.
I had no clue about that. What was that? Was the name of the movie The Queen of Sheba?
I think it was Solomon and Sheba.
Okay, I don't remember that at all.
I don't either. We'll have to look it up. Have a movie night. There she is, very elegant. Now, I did a little research. Okay. I'm not going to tell you that she never existed, like sometimes I do with my research.
Thank you, Renee.
Look at all of the places where there are stories about the Queen of Sheba. It crosses all religions, all cultures, historians, classic historians, everyone recording in different ways. It appears in two places in Hebrew scriptures in our Bible. Everyone speaking of this woman. The earliest, I think, is that Ethiopian document that was translated from Arabic in 1322.
Okay, wow.
So she has been, there's 10th century down there, the Nigerian. Walls were dedicated to her in the 10th century. She's just globally known.
Sort of still bigger than life.
But the stories are really different. And so I wanted to share with you the favorite story I heard before we get to how Frederick Buechner wants to tell us about her.
Okay.
So let me just read this to you. The most elaborate account of the queen's visit to Solomon is given in the Aramaic commentary on the book of Esther. Hupo, do you know what that is?
I don't.
That's the bird that you're looking at right now.
Oh.
A hupo goes to Solomon and informs Solomon that the kingdom of Sheba was the only kingdom on earth not subject to him, and that its queen was a sun worshiper. So Solomon sent the bird to the land of Sheba with a letter attached to its wing, commanding its queen to come to him as a subject.
So did the bird talk to Solomon?
I guess so.
But
don't you like this story?
I do. But
it kind of makes me think of the Lion King in a way.
But the bird was like, I'm not talking for you. You have to write a letter.
And so there was a letter attached to the bird's wing, and the bird flew all the way back. How could the bird? Anyway, I love the story. It keeps going. The Queen of Sheba sent Solomon all the ships of the sea loaded with precious gifts and 6,000 youths of equal size, all born at the same hour and clothed in purple garments. Isn't that wild?
It is.
All born at the same hour. They carried a letter declaring that the queen could arrive in Jerusalem within 3 years, although the journey normally took 7 years. How was she going to do that so quickly? When the queen arrived and came to Solomon's palace, thinking that the glass floor was a pool of water, she lifted the hem of her dress, uncovering her legs. Solomon informed her of her mistake and reprimanded her for her hairy legs.
What?
Then she asked him 3 more riddles to test his wisdom. I knew you would like that version. So all of these different sources and different kinds of literature that speak of her tell different stories. One of them said, no, there wasn't actually a queen of Sheba. She was a kingdom. Not an actual person, but everybody else seems to identify her as a
You're
person.
not taking the Queen of Sheba from me, so I'm going to say that she was a person.
That's right. Yeah. She was a person, and I love the story because that bird is delivering the message.
I do too.
I would like to see
bird.
one. A hoopoe. I don't know that.
I like how you say it too. Hoopoe.
Watch it, Shannon. All right. Now, this is 1 Kings chapter 10. As always, Buechner does a great job of consolidating lots of details. And if you haven't thought about Solomon's palace in a while, go back to chapter 9, chapter 8. Read all of the details as if this was kind of an inventory. Here's the people who worked on the project, and here's what this structure looked like, and here's the weight, and so many specifics. It's really interesting. And then you get to this story, which is really fun. So give us the Frederick Buechner version, if you will.
Okay, happily. The Queen of Sheba decided to go see for herself if King Solomon was all that he was cracked up to be, and, court etiquette being what it was, she didn't go empty-handed. She brought enough camels to stock 6 zoos, and gold and jewels enough to fill 12 steamer trunks, and so many spices that when the wind blew the wrong way, it almost knocked you off your feet. She also anointed herself from head to toe with Chanel No. 5, fastened on herself as many feathers, ribbons, and diamonds as there were places to fasten them, and when she arrived in Jerusalem, it was like a Mardi Gras parade. Keep going?
Keep going.
Since part of what Solomon was famous for was his skill at riddles, she brought a number of those along too. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? And what goes up a chimney down, but won't go down a chimney up? Those were among the easier ones, and the others were real shin crackers.
Do you know what the answer is to that second riddle?
Yeah.
What is it?
An umbrella.
What goes up a chimney down, but won't go down a chimney? You've heard that riddle before?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard that
No,
riddle
I'm
before.
just that
just
wise
brilliant,
and
like
brilliant.
Solomon. Those are among the easier ones. The others were real shin crackers. Keep going.
Solomon knocked them all off, one right after another, without even batting an eye, and said it was like shooting fish in a barrel. He then offered to give her a guided tour of the palace. He showed her a dining room table that could seat the whole State Department down to the last undersecretary's secretary, plus the gold plates he used when he wanted to put on the dog, and the massive silver service he kept for when he wanted just a quiet evening at home with the family. When he took her to the place where he kept burnt offerings for Yahweh, she thought they'd wandered into the Chicago stockyards by mistake. By the time they'd finished, the queen was so undone that she had to excuse herself and go to her room, where she took off her girdle, put up her feet, and had her lady's maid apply cold compresses until the bell rang for supper.
That was quite a tour.
That was.
All right, a little bit more.
Okay, after supper, she rallied enough to make a little speech. Seeing was believing, she said, but she still thought her contact lenses might need readjustment. She'd heard plenty before she came, but now she knew she hadn't heard the half of it. She couldn't say which he was better at, cracking riddles or picking wives, and the 50 or so of them who were present because they weren't pregnant at the time applauded politely. She said Yahweh must be tickled pink to have a king like Solomon on the payroll.
All right, now a little bit more gift exchange to close out the story.
All right, then she sat down, but not before making him a bread and butter present of as much of the gold and jewels and spices and camels as she thought she wouldn't be needing herself on the trip home. Solomon responded by giving her so much in return that it made what she'd given him look like something she'd picked up at a tag sale. And when she got back to Sheba, it was some years before she ventured forth again.
That trip wore her
It wore
out.
her out. She was tired.
Wore her out. She had to go to her room early and take off her girdle. I
Never-
just think this is a hilarious story. And he's not trying to make any theological points or any little editorial at the end. He's just having fun telling the story.
Yeah, we found a couple of times Buechner will give us a little commentary, a little sermon almost at the end of these little stories, but not in this one. It's just a
Why
just
do
a
you
fun
think it's
tale.
important for that encounter to be recorded in Scripture?
I don't know. I guess just to solidify if there were any doubts about Solomon's
Yes.
greatness.
I think it is to validate Solomon as a global king, not just a local king, but to attract the attention of people
and even
far
in
away.
that non-scriptural example that you gave, he had a real problem.
Yes.
It seems with not having somebody under his.
And so, yes, so the
subject to
invitation was, come and be my subject. And she was like, I'm not going to do that.
I'm not even going to shave my legs.
You're not the boss of me. I think it must be, it's more entertaining than the commentary around it in 1 Kings. I think it must just be there to say Solomon was all that he was cracked up to be.
He was a big deal.
an
Even more than
important
the Queen of Sheba that everybody thought was a big deal. Solomon's
She
better
had to
than
come
that.
and check him out, so that was a sign. He was something.
And he had more stuff, and he had, yeah.
I like it. I like the Queen of Sheba. She went right back home. She didn't agree to be his subject.
Good.
She was glad for all the presents. I guess she had to send a little thank you note attached to a bird's wing to go back and thank Solomon for all of his
She
gifts.
sent the
Hoopo.
that it might have just said thank you.
Yes, that's true. Thank you very much, King Solomon. So this is so light and fun. And now we're going to turn to one of my favorite.
Is it?
Yes, I love Thomas.
Yeah. So just to, kind of catch you up, Thomas is one of the disciples, and we really hear about him post-resurrection. That's where his story seems to shine. I looked to see where we see Thomas in the Bible. He is mentioned only once, in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and Acts. And in those books, he is just included in a list of who the disciples were. But it's in the Gospel of John that Thomas really gets the spotlight. He's mentioned in chapter 11 when they're on the way to see Lazarus, when Jesus brings Lazarus back to life. And then in that final speech that Jesus gives to the disciples before, at the Last Supper, when he's sort of cramming in all of the lessons he needs them to know before he's crucified, Jesus says, you know the way, you know where I'm going. And then
Jesus,
Thomas
I
says,
don't.
no, we don't know where you're going. How do we know the way?
Yes.
And then there's a great story at the end of John's Gospel where the disciples are fishing again and Jesus appears on the beach. But it's in chapter 20 that we're going to be focusing on today, and it's where we get the name Doubting Thomas.
One of the things that I like about them on the way after Lazarus died is Jesus announces, well, we're going to go, and they're kind of hiding out. And it could be dangerous for Jesus to go back and visit Lazarus or visit his sisters. And Thomas says, we'll go with you and we'll die too.
Right.
So very, very loyal.
Yes, brave.
If that's what you need to do, we'll be with you, and we're willing to put our lives on the line.
Right.
So Jesus couldn't have doubted his loyalty, right?
True.
I like Thomas for that scene as well.
This is a picture Orlu sent us. It is an ivory relief panel from 1020, and called The Doubting of Thomas.
Oh, and Jesus is allowing for Thomas to see where the spears pierced him.
Yeah. So let's read what happens here. In John 20, it says, Jesus came and stood among them, said, peace be with you. After he said this, he showed them his hands and his side. The disciples rejoiced when they saw the Lord. He breathed on them and said, receive the Holy Spirit. Will you read about Thomas?
But Thomas, who was called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, we have seen the Lord. But he said to them, unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger in the mark of the nails and my hand in his side, I will not believe.
I will not believe. And so from that moment on, we have a new idiom.
Doubting
Thomas. And it's been used ever since to describe skeptics, somebody who has to see to believe. There's a song by the band Nickel Creek.
Have you heard that song? It is awesome.
It's a great song.
I love that song.
And one of the lines says, I'm a doubting Thomas, can't keep my promises. Oh, me of little faith. And then I found, there's a picture of the movie poster here, Will Rogers' final film from 1935 called Doubting Thomas. It has nothing to do with the disciple.
With the Bibles.
But his character's name is Thomas, and apparently is a doubter. But
I wonder if there's a way that we can get that.
Probably so. All of
movie.
That to show
I'm
that
interested in Will Rogers.
the name Doubting
Yes.
Thomas just stands for somebody who doesn't believe.
I wonder who was the first person who put doubting in front of Thomas.
I don't know. I tried to find that out. I did like a search of that phrase.
Like a sermon by Martin Luther, or
Yeah.
you couldn't find an answer to that?
Couldn't find anything on the internet. There might be somewhere
Our
something
supreme,
that's not
yes,
on
maybe
the internet.
somebody can send us an email.
Maybe
and
so.
tell us.
Maybe somebody else knows.
Doubting Thomas.
So it says that a week later, the disciples were again in the house. Thomas was with them this time. He wasn't with them the first time. And the doors were shut. Jesus came and stood among them once again, said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas directly, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." So here's a picture by
I don't like this picture.
Caravaggio. It's gross.
I don't
It's
think
called The
that.
Incredulity of St. Thomas, 1602. What don't you like about it?
That he's poking his finger inside Jesus.
That's what Jesus said to do.
I know, but I don't. I think he was just being magnanimous, and Thomas was like, "Is this really you?"
Oh, you don't think Thomas would have done it? You think
Well,
Jesus offered and Thomas didn't really do it?
I imagine Jesus kind of holding out his hands so you could see the marks of the nails. You know, whatever you need to believe, Thomas, I'm here for you. But then I don't imagine that this is what happened.
You
next.
don't think he really did it? I've never thought about that. I just always assumed he did.
Because Jesus was being open and he was there and it was clear. You could see the signs of the crucifixion on him, see that he was risen. So I don't.
No need to actually. Okay, that's a good. Well, you're not the only
And it's
one.
not very sanitary.
You're not the only one who didn't like this. Caravaggio used peasant models for this painting, and that really made the church mad that these commoners were being used as models for Jesus and the saints. So I thought that was really interesting. But it's also, I mean, it's a gross picture.
Yeah, I don't like it.
So,
I normally like Caravaggio, but I do not like this picture.
well, we will mark that down. I will not get you a print of this for your birthday.
Do not put this picture on your Easter card.
So Buechner describes Thomas as that imagination was not his long suit, that he was a realist, and he was always direct. You know, we don't know where you're going, Jesus. And why is Jesus always talking in riddles? And he said, he's a man. He's not a way. What do you mean you're the way? You're a man. So tell us what Buechner says about this story of Thomas.
Nobody says where Thomas was at the time. One good thing about not having too much of an imagination is that you're not apt to work yourself up into quite as much of a panic as Thomas' friends had. Maybe he'd gone out for a cup of coffee or just went to sit in the park and watch the pigeons.
I love how Buechner brings all of these stories into
Buechner is like you.
days.
You would ask the question, where was Thomas? He's like you.
I have asked
you
that
ask
question
questions
too.
that don't occur to anyone else. Where was he?
Why wasn't he there? It still bothers me.
Out in the park watching the
what,
pigeons.
what was more important than being with your friends at this crucial time? I don't get it. But, you know, Buechner says he came back. He heard what happened. He imagined that what the others had seen was either wishful thinking or unusually vivid optical illusion, and that in order to believe this, he would have to touch and see for himself. So I have a new picture here. I bet you like this one better.
Yes.
This is
more
Reuben's.
respectful.
Yes, and there's no wound in the side. You'll see. He was like you. He didn't like Caravaggio's. Maybe. Yeah, that was before. So maybe he fixed what he thought was wrong with.
A little. Caravaggio went a little too far in that illustration.
And they're just looking.
Yes.
They're not touching.
Respectfully.
That's very important to you. That they would have kept that respect. So continue on with what Buechner says.
8 days later, when Jesus came back, Thomas was there and got his wish. Jesus did let him see and hear him and touch him, and not even Thomas could hold out against evidence like that. He had no questions left to ask. All he could say was, "My Lord and my God." And Jesus seemed to consider that, under the circumstances, that was enough. Then Jesus asked a question of his own. "Have you believed because you have seen me? And then bless the generations who have come since, who have not seen and yet believe."
And I love the way he ends this.
Even though he said the greater blessing is for those who can believe without seeing, it's hard to imagine that there's a believer anywhere who wouldn't have traded places with Thomas, given the chance, and seen that face, and heard that voice, and touched those ruined hands.
Isn't that beautiful?
That's lovely.
Mm-hmm. Except you would not have touched the hands. You would have just...
The hands are okay. I don't mind touching the hands, but don't be poking your finger in Jesus' side like that. That's not respectful.
Well, okay. I will keep that in mind.
Where are your manners?
Should that ever come up?
Where are your manners?
But no, would you, if you had would you have liked to have seen the risen Christ at that time?
And how wonderful for Thomas to be important enough to Jesus.
Yes.
That Jesus said, if I need to make another trip.
Directly spoke to him.
That visit was just for Thomas. Mm-hmm. And it makes me think we have more revealed about that relationship from the time that Thomas said, "We'll go with you and we'll die with you." Mm-hmm. If we need to go to see Lazarus, we'll go with you and lay down our own lives. And then on the other side of his resurrection, for Jesus to say, Thomas is important.
His witness is going to be so valid.
Yes.
For people. If Thomas saw and Thomas can attest, because we know how Thomas is, that if he can...
It will matter.
It will
matter to the spread of the gospel. Yep. I love it.
I do too. That's good stuff.
What are we going to do now that we've finished Peculiar Treasures?
Now that we have finished Peculiar Treasures, we are going to take a look at a book in the Bible, in the New Testament, written by Jesus' brother, James. It's a short book, 5 chapters. And
it's one of your favorites.
It's one of my favorites because it's very practical and it's very straightforward. I like that.
Not a lot of cosmic mystery, but here's how to live like you need to live if you're a follower of Jesus.
Yep, do these things.
And what we need
to do those.
And the stuff we need to knock off. Mm-hmm. Stop doing this. Stop doing that.
Yeah.
All right. So we're all going to be convicted. And everybody can go get their Bible and start reading James.
Right. You don't have to buy a book.
And we'll start
I bet you
next
got a Bible
week.
Already. If you don't, I bet
come to the church. Come to the church and we'll give you one. It's a promise.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a real joy to go through this book. Thank you for introducing this book to me. I love Buechner, but I didn't know about this.
I hope we'll encourage everybody to read more of Frederick Buechner. These were just samples, but he is such a gift.
Yeah. So we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email if you have a question or a comment, and we will see you next time. Have a great week.